this video we're going to look at rectangles and the different properties of a rectangle. So to start out, a rectangle, let's just look at the diagonals, and then we'll look at a few other properties. So the diagonals of a rectangle, that's connecting the opposite corners, these lines right here. These are congruent, they're the same length, and they're mutually bisecting, which means they cut each other in half. So if I were to mark this, this side is the same as this side, and this side is the same as this side. And actually, to be a little bit more specific, these are all the same. So mutually bisecting means they cut each other in half, but they're all the same. All the halves, if you will, are the same. So, and that makes sense because if these are congruent, and then I just got some mail, I guess. So if these are congruent, and they cut each other in half, then obviously each half is the same. And then it also, the diagonals cut the rectangle into two pairs of congruent triangles. So what I mean is, like this yellow triangle is the same as that yellow triangle down there. And then the white triangle is the same as that white triangle. So these diagonals cut the rectangle into congruent triangles. Now they are not symmetry lines, the diagonals, because if you fold this over, it's not going to match up perfectly. So I'm thinking if we take and we cut it right along this diagonal, straighten that out a little bit. If we cut it right here, this corner is going to end up somewhere down here. It's not going to match up nicely. It definitely cuts it into two congruent parts, but it's not symmetric at that line. Okay, so let's look at the next properties. All of the angles are 90 degrees. So all of the corners are 90 degrees on a rectangle, and that's something you learn pretty young. So therefore, any two angles are congruent because they're both 90, and they're supplementary because they add up to 180. So if I take this bottom corner and the one next to it, those are congruent because they're both 90, and they both add up. When you add these two up, they add up to 180. So they're congruent and supplementary. It doesn't matter which two angles I pick. I could take the opposite angles, or I could take the consecutive angles. Either way. Okay, and then let's look at the sides as well. The sides, I color-coded them here. The sides of a rectangle are parallel. The green ones are parallel. And they're congruent, so they're the same size, and they'll never touch if you extend them out forever. They're parallel. Same thing with the red ones. Those are also parallel. And then I also noted here there are two symmetry lines with a rectangle. One symmetry line is if I cut it right down the middle, going up and down. This half over here is the same as this half over here, and if you fold it along this dotted line, it'll match up perfectly. And same thing across this way. If you fold the bottom up to the top, it'll match nice and perfectly. So there are two symmetry lines on a rectangle. Okay, and then our last slide here, I've got a problem here, and we want to find all the possible missing lengths and angle measures of this rectangle. So I want to find out what are all the side lengths and what are all the angles using what we just learned. So, I encourage you to copy this down, pause it, and then try to figure this out on your own. But otherwise, I'll go through it with you. So pause it if you want to do it. Otherwise, I'll do it right now. So I'll choose blue to do this one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out, let's do all the sides first. So I noticed that the left side is 10. And then that means the right side over here is also going to be 10. So let's write that down, 10 centimeters. The bottom is 26. That means the top is also 26 centimeters. Okay, this half of the diagonal is 13. So this half is also 13 centimeters. And then these are also 13. The halves are also 13 centimeters. I'm already noticing I didn't pick really good numbers because this side here can't be 26 when this is also 26. I probably should have made this. Let's change this. This should be 24. I'm just being a little picky here. And I know that because 10 squared plus 24 squared equals 26 squared. So it should have been 24 to make it a little more technically correct. Okay, so let's look at the angles then, and I'm going to do red for angles. So if this is 37, this side over here is also 37. And I know that because if I cut it right down the middle, it's symmetric. And so this 37 would line up with this 37. And same thing, if I cut it down the middle this way, the long way, this would also be 37. 37. And you'll learn in a later lesson that you could prove this. These are called alternate interior angles, this red 37 and this red 37, but we're not there yet. Okay, so that would mean this one's also 37 down here. And then we could find the other angles in each corner, because each corner has to equal 90 degrees. So if we take 90 and subtract 37, we get 53. So this is 53. This is 53. And each corner is a 37 and a 53, because each corner has to add up to 90. So 53 and 53. So far we have all the sides, and we have almost all the angles. The only angles we don't have are in the middle. So I'm going to get rid of this symmetry line here. And so let's try to figure out this angle in the middle, and once we get this one, we can get all the other ones. So we know that any triangle, I'm looking at this triangle up here, any triangle, all three angles have to add up to 180. So we got 37, 37, and we don't know this one. Let's figure out what that missing one is. So it's going to be 37 plus 37. That's 74. If we take 180 and take away 74, that's going to leave us with what's left over for this angle, because we know all three of them have to add up to 180. So we get 106. This is 106 degrees. So 106 degrees. And then if this is 106, the one right across from it's also 106 degrees. So these are the same. Okay? And then we can do the same thing for this angle. We've got a 53, 53, add them up, subtract from 180, that'll give us this angle. So 53 plus 53 is 106, and 180 take away 106 is 74. So this is going to be 74 and 74. And voila, we've got all the angles and all the sides. So hopefully that helps you understand rectangles a little bit better.